The Sports Source is brought to you by Fast Frame, with exciting Vol sports prints now available.
You are watching East Tennessee's first and only year-round sports talk show on television. This is The Sports Source with your host, John Pennington.
Good Sunday morning and welcome into the Sports Source. Happy to have you joining us. Tennessee with a 45-24 victory over Virginia Tech in Bristol last night. I think if most Vol fans had heard that before the game, they'd have said, I'll take it. 45-24? Absolutely, that's great. But they've still got a lot of stuff to work on. Got a lot of help from Virginia Tech. Good news is Tennessee didn't beat itself the way Virginia Tech did. That's half the battle. That's a plus. But Tennessee clearly has issues, and we'll discuss those issues. We'll discuss the positives, a lot of play calling, Dobbs, offensive line, you name it. Let's get right into it. First segment of our show brought to you by Tennova Healthcare. Tennova has top-of-the-line facilities and the very latest, most advanced equipment. There's no question about that. But what sets them apart is their people. And I know that from when I had to go through a cancer battle with Tennova and just watched a loved one go through a cancer battle, a continued cancer battle with radiation treatments. So I know firsthand how much the support and the care of the Tennova crew means a ton. Trust me on that. You'll find no better people anywhere in East Tennessee. Tennova Healthcare. Learn more at Tennova.com. I want to welcome in our panel, the first wave of panelists today. Right here, Bob Hodge, VFL Will Overstreet. Jimmy Himes is right there, and VFL Daniel Hood down at that end, made it all the way back from Bristol. Thank you for being here, my friend. All right. We will talk a whole lot about the offensive line today, and I want to start there with what we're calling the Overstreet theorem. Last week during the Appy State game, I get a text from Mr. Overstreet here, and he says, you know what, as bad as this O-line is looking, did we give them too much credit for the 2,900 yards rushing last year, for the 35 points per game last year? We said, well, they're not bad. But, Will, your theory was, and I fully believe it at this point, you have three really superior talents that can run the football. Dobbs, Kamara, Hurd. When those guys are running, they mask a lot of the issues with that O-line. They make plays happen on their own. When they're not doing that, either by choice or coaching decision or just can't, like Appy State, offensive line looks even worse. The offense looks even worse. When those guys are making plays on their own, it masks the problems with the offensive line. I believe that theory. I think that's more of an issue than this offensive line taking major steps backwards, though I think that's part two. But I think we did give them too much credit last year. I'll start with you. This was your theory. Did I voice that correctly? Is there anything you want to add to that?
No, I think you definitely voice it correctly. I mean, the big thing here is everybody gives all these players at times they have a bad game, Dobbs and the different running backs, and you continue to look at it, even when they're having a great game or having a great moment, you see guys that they're making miss in the backfield.
Yep.
I mean, it's not like they're getting past the first level and they have to make a safety miss. They're making defensive tackles miss. They're making linebackers miss. And those guys are at the line of scrimmage, best case scenario, most times in the backfield is when they're having to make a miss the first time. That has to tell you what this is.
I would love to see a breakdown on the numbers. Hurd with the football, with hands on him, or when he's just wide open. It's got to be 80% of the time he's got people hanging on it. Has to be 80% of the time.
Sure.
Do you believe in the Overstreet theorem?
Oh, yeah. I'm going to start teaching a course at UT on Overstreet theorem. Tennessee's offensive line last night was giving up pressure with four guys consistently. And if I'm not mistaken, there was one time when they gave three guys were just ran right through them. Yeah. And you're sitting there and you're kind of wondering, what are the offensive linemen thinking? Because you see them come out of their stance on a pass block, and one of the guards last night, he looked to his right for like 5 seconds, it seemed. Of course, Tennessee never has 5 seconds.
Yeah, that's right. Dobbs would argue.
And there was nobody there. And even at little kids level, you would say if there's nobody there, you block where somebody is, but yet he just stayed, nobody coming, and it was like, man, this is great. I'm out here, nobody's coming towards me, I'm not getting hurt. So I think the offensive line, I don't know if it's a physical problem or do they just not know exactly what to do, which could be a worse problem.
Do those running backs help mask the offensive line? Did we overrate the offensive line a little? And nobody here said they were great last year.
Yeah.
But were they worse than we thought because those running backs?
I've kind of agreed with Will's theory since North Texas last year, because Tennessee, when they weren't running the zone read against North Texas, they had trouble running the football and scoring points. They were very vanilla and didn't look very good. And so I do think that those the special talents they have at running back. Having said that, I don't remember Tennessee blowing as many assignments, whiffing, having trouble blocking 3 people on a rush as they are doing in the first 2 games. So I think they're making mistakes. They've regressed for whatever reasons. But, I think that if your quarterback's not carrying the ball effectively in this zone read, then your offensive line is not good enough to overcome that.
And I agree. I think if you have a great passer, this offense will work. Well, you don't have that. So you better be running with it, because Dobbs is never going to be mistaken for a guy that the defense has to respect his passing. So they're always going to pound. If he's not running, you're in trouble. Daniel, hang on a second. I want to start the next question with you, but I want to put some numbers up first about Tennessee and the run game, which kind of speaks to what Will was getting at, versus FBS foes last year and this year. When Tennessee has rushed for more than 150 yards, they are 9-1, averaging 38.9 points per game. When they rush for under 150 yards, they are 1-3 for just 19 points a game. It's double when they go over 150. Lone win under 150, overtime against Appy State last week. So for all the talk about the passing game, you better hope they can run for 150 every week, because that masks the other ills. Daniel Hood, reasons for the offensive line to step backwards, and defensive line got pushed around last night.
They did.
All right, I brought it up on last week's show, and I thought, maybe a little too early to be getting in there. I don't think so now. These lines at times played weak last night. Weak. Pushed around, weak. I don't remember a lot of that last year. They made a change in the strength and conditioning program. I'm looking for other things this could be, but when you're going out there and looking weaker than you played the year before, and you have a Virginia running back go down the sideline past your guys, so you're looking a little slower too. Your thoughts on the strength change? Am I overblowing this too soon, or is it one to continue to keep an eye on?
I think it's one to keep an eye on. And what I go back to is I got the awesome experience of having 5 strength coaches at UT with all the different ones. And honestly, I have to say Coach Lawson was the best. I mean, hands down in knowledge of it and everything you were doing and working out with speed and strength and everything else. And the guy that was his right-hand man is, of course, the new strength coach, and Coach Thurston. But his knowledge wasn't what Lawson had yet. And so I think it's probably a little too premature to make that change. And so I think it's something we got to continue to watch, because when you're giving up 4 or 5 yards of carry on defense, it's going to be hard to win a football game when you're going to get an SEC foe.
Will, you've been in NFL weight rooms. All right, this guy's gone to more of the Olympic lifting technique. And here's the thing, they all have this. Some guys lift tires, other guys do Olympic technique. He's working more on explosiveness. It's all about short burst energy, yada, yada, yada. Your thoughts on the strength and conditioning program? How much is that a concern to you at this point, or is it at this point? Or am I grasping at straws?
No, I don't think you're grasping at straws. I mean, you do see these guys, especially in the first quarter, they got pushed around. And honestly, even they interviewed Coach Beamer over there, and he said, looked like in the first quarter, the 2 front lines, we were much better than Tennessee was. Yeah. I don't think anybody could watch that first quarter and say there was any doubt about that. I mean, it wasn't just doubt that they were moving. I mean, they were taking and they were moving defensive tackles into the cheap seats.
Quarterback carried 2 balls forward for a first down. They had him 2 yards short of the first down. He carries 2 balls for the first down.
Well, there was a number of times that you would just say one guy grabbed him, but one of our linebackers, one of our DTs tackling a guy, he got 4 extra yards right after that.
Very quick, Daniel.
No, the one thing I want to add to it is the question I keep thinking and coming back to is this the strength and conditioning problem, or is this a recruiting problem? Are we not recruiting, the right guys? Because we've seen a lot of guys that have not panned out here lately, and you look at the offensive line, when Coach Jones got there, it was Juwan James, Zach Fulton, James Stone, Antonio Richardson. I don't think we have any one of those guys that could compete with those same 5 guys for a starting position.
And you're into year 2 now, and you're still having issues with your big 5-star recruit that Alabama wanted Drew Richmond, Ole Miss wanted Drew Richmond. You had to take Drew Richmond out last night.
And just remember, Sam Pittman wanted to stay at the University of Tennessee, who's done pretty well at Arkansas and Georgia, that you turned down to bring in someone better.
And remember Dontavius Blair.
Another one that was supposed to be a
5-star
highly rated
junior college
JUCO
offensive lineman.
And he washed out without really contributing much. All right, when we come back, we are going to talk about Josh Dobbs. We are going to talk about play calling. Play calling make the offense look bad. Offense make the play calling look bad. We'll discuss. Coming back on the Sports Source.